So everything that makes me whole. Yo. Hey everyone, what's going on? I'm back again for another bi-yearly video. Hope you guys have been having a good summer. Hope you guys had a good summer. I'm pretty sure that was the last time I made a video. So as of the time of recording, the current anime season's a little bit slow. Only 2 or 3 good shows, one of which keeps getting delayed.
Oh, hell no, man. What the fuck, man?
So I was scrolling through my plan to watch list while listening to my Hiroyuki Sawano playlist and thought to myself, I wonder what other shows he has worked on. If you haven't heard of who he is, then you've definitely heard of him. No, hang on, that sounds fucking stupid. If you haven't heard his name, you have 100% heard his music. He has created absolute masterpieces, such as... Don't lose your way, as well as... And also... So I stumbled upon Guilty Crown. The score on my anime list looked good, so let's give it a watch. I said to myself, as if the last time I watched a high score on my anime list show, it didn't end horribly. And oh my god, if this show isn't a complete discombobulated mess. Now let me try my best to go over the plot. So yeah, this section of the video might be a little long. The year is 2029, and despite having holographic screens, they need projectors for some reason. Sorry, that was really nitpicky. Anyway, 10 years before the show, a major event called Lost Christmas happened, where this virus called the Apocalypse Virus spread across Japan. The virus crystallizes people and slowly spreads through their body, killing them. So an organization called the GHQ rallied and essentially took over a hellscape Japan and restored order. Now by 2029, they have developed vaccines and life has mostly returned to normal. This is where we meet Shu Oma, a high school kid who gets caught up in the activities of a resistance group called the Undertakers, who oppose the very harsh rule of the GHQ. He meets Inori, an internet musician he's a fan of, and he, through a bunch of more various events, receives the Void Genome, which gives him the power to extract voids from people. Voids are people's hearts given shape and can be tools used by Shu. He teams up with Tsutogami Guy, the leader of the Undertaker, an only good character in this show for the first half anyways. For the next 7 episodes, it's basically a bunch of filler. Guy says he has a mission, they go on said mission, Shu uses his voids, secures the thing they're looking for, and all is good. Eventually, Shu has had enough of being a terrorist, a resistance person, so he leaves the Undertakers. We learn some dude from the GHQ has stolen a rock which has apparently caused the Apocalypse Virus. He uses it and causes a bunch of people to get the Apocalypse Virus, but then Inori sings and all of a sudden the virus goes away. Then this guy named Dot, or something along those lines, shows up and steals Inori from Shu in the middle of them. It is finally revealed in a series of flashbacks that Shu had an older sister who was way too in love with him. Him and his older sister, Mana, found this young boy washed up on the beach and named him Triton. Turns out this boy, Triton, grows up into Guy. Now, when I say Mana was way too in love with her brother, I mean Orimo type of love. She wants to marry Shu, probably have his babies, and ends up kissing him, etc., etc. You know the deal, just natural sibling love. Then, one Christmas, she brings Guy and Shu to a church and causes Guy to accidentally shoot himself with a ricocheting bullet because he liked Mana, I'm not kidding by the way, and tries to really get Shu to marry her. Shu doesn't know what the fuck's going on, fair enough, and calls Mana a monster, also fair enough. She goes psycho and screams, causing the virus to spread. So could all of this been avoided if Shu just, said yeah? Yeah, it could have. Well, how did she spread the virus, you ask? That seems like a bit of a leap. Now, I want to preface this by saying the following flashbacks I'm about to talk to are way later in the show. It turns out that Mana and Shu's dad has been studying genetics, genomes, and evolution. While studying, and I shit you not, a rock falls from the sky that reacts to the exact genomes they so happen to be studying. This rock causes Mana to get what would be the first case of the Apocalypse virus, which is slowly growing in Mana and killing her, and it reacts to her scream when Shu rejects her on Lost Christmas, killing Mana, spreading the Apocalypse virus, and yada yada. Shu had apparently suppressed all these horrible memories, which is a convenient way of, fucking mystery, but anyways. Right, now we're all caught up. Flash forward, and Shu and Mana's father's research partner, their father died by the way, is trying to resurrect Mana to finish the apocalypse that started that day, and he's going to use Inori as a vessel to do that. Now remember this plot point because we come back to it later. Anyway, Shu kills both Guy and Mana to stop them. All this happens in like 2 episodes, by the way. Now for the best arc of the show. For some reason, the area which this all happened is now under quarantine, where Shu and his friend's school is. So they're taking shelter at the school when the GHQ announces the area will be permanently closed off and they surround it with giant walls. They then start moving the walls inward, and anything that is at the edge of these walls gets killed. After a friend of Shu's gets killed, he finally grows a pair and takes over the school, ranking people based on how useful their voids are and making a plan to escape the walls. Their plan works, but right at the end of it, Guy shows up again, resurrected from the dead, cuts off Shu's hand, and takes the power of the voids for himself, and basically takes over all of Japan in like 30 seconds. Then, now, fucking stop me if you've heard this one before, Guy kidnaps Inori to revive Mana using Inori as a vessel. Yep, I spent 6 episodes watching the same fucking plot again. Sorry, let me finish the summary. So they stop Guy, Inori sacrifices herself, and everyone more or less lives happily ever after. Now, where do I begin? Let's start with the characters. There are only 2 good characters in the show. Guy before he dies the first time, and the wheelchair girl, Ayase. Now Guy, like every character Yuichi Nakamura voices, is the best in this show. He got a legitimate personality, goals, desires, needs, etc. You are shown his charismatic side as well as his weaker side when he's not busy being the leader of the Undertakers. And Ayase just feels like a human. She's complex, has values that she sticks to, but grows and just has some proper character development. The rest are one-trick ponies. Inori doesn't even have a personality, she's just totally emotionless, shows no improvements and hardly any developments, and Shu, well, for the first half anyways, is just a wimpy kid who does anything for a female and things with his dick. During the first few episodes, Inori lives with Shu and tries to snuggle up to him, only later to admit that Guy asked her to do so he would join the Undertaker. Then, the next fucking episode, he's back to simping with her as if nothing happened. They don't bring it up again. Like, what? That would be a huge breach of my trust, but Shu is back to being an almighty simp in the blink of an eye, and we all know how endearing a main character whose only job is to please female characters are. None of the other characters are even notable. There wasn't one I enjoyed aside from my Guy and Ayase. Even then, they ruined Guy when they brought him back for the second time. Everything that made him interesting in the first half of the show vanished, and he basically became a cardboard character. You could have replaced Guy with literally any random person in the final arc, and it wouldn't have changed anything about the story or how I feel about the character. As far as I'm concerned, the guy in the end wasn't Guy, just some lookalike. There's also this Dot guy, or whatever the fuck his name was. I fucking hate when they introduce a bad guy, give him utterly no explanation as to who they are, and this dumb fuck is the epitome of that. He has a total collective screen time of like 7 minutes, spouts a bunch of weird ass philosophy, shows off some crazy powers, and then just vanished when Shu kills him. The story literally would not have been any different if he wasn't in it, and if he was supposed to be something, then they didn't do any good job explaining who the fuck he was. Now let's get to the plot. They failed to explain anything about this virus, so let me present the information we know. Now, the virus doesn't transmit by air nor contact because there's evidence of both people holding an infected and by proxy inhaling similar air. Next, we know that there is a vaccine for it. There's also a specific line in the fucking show during a flashback that says the virus isn't very transmittable. Next, we know there's a vaccine for it, and if this vaccine is not taken before the virus reaches stage 2, you will succumb to it. Also, it doesn't show that you have to regularly take the vaccine like the flu one every year. It's also revealed that the virus manifests when the space rock resonates at some frequency, the frequency of Mana's scream in the case of Lost Christmas. So from all the evidence, I conclude that everyone has the virus because they were hit with Mana's scream, as well as the song when they activated the space rock the second time, but the vaccine stops it from manifesting. So once again, from all the evidence, if you take the vaccine, you're good to go. So why does the GHQ place so much emphasis on the infected people? The whole reason they tried to massacre people in the beginning of the show, and the reason they trapped a bunch of students in a school to also massacre them, is because they are infected. But if you just give them the vaccine, they will be fine. Also, during episode 12, it's shown that Inori can sing a song and magically the virus gets eradicated from people. In fact, everyone who was first affected when they heard Inori's song should have been rid of it. And finally, the character which they claim was a lead researcher on the virus came to the conclusion that the virus wasn't even very infectious in the first place. The writers could not decide what they wanted this virus to be, so they just used it as they saw fit for the plot. Hey, here's a shot of people being cured to the virus thanks to Inori's song. But then here's a shot of some people with the virus because Shu won't give them the vaccine. But also, here's a million shots of someone holding a patient. It just makes no sense, especially being something that changed the world so drastically as it has. The basics of storytelling state that you need to build a world with rules, then you must adhere to those rules when writing your story. The writers of this show haven't decided on what the virus is, so it's just all over the place. Next, I want to touch on voids. When you think about it for a second, it's an alright idea. Everyone has an object that is a manifestation of your heart. A kind, caring person has band-aids. Someone who is closed off has a shield. But when you think about it for more than 1 second, it's the most insane easy cop-out for the writer. Hey, a bunch of missiles are coming for Shu on a boat? Oh look, this girl with the shield void is here as well. Hey, we need to destroy a satellite that's plummeting towards Tokyo? Well, funny you mention that because the sword that was Inori's void now has a laser beam and is only used once for it. Or the first big fight where the bad guys were going to use lasers to kill the Undertakers. So they have one of the minor characters' voids be a kaleidoscope to reflect the lasers back at the enemies. We really got them there, boys. And then it's just never brought up again. Also, there was this one guy whose void was a camera that opened things. Because I guess that's just how cameras work. But Shu uses it to just remove solid matter instead. Voids, much like the virus, just get used in convenient ways and have no rules. You know what? Actually, I lied. There are rules, but rules are meant to be broken, right? Voids can, and I shit you not, only be pulled from someone who is under the age of 17. No idea why, and in fact it literally never comes up again. This rule gets shattered and ruined when voids get yoinked from clearly adults, including Guy, who is either the most immature 17-year-old ever, or the writers wrote some weird-ass rule and then promptly forgot about it. Likely the latter. There is also a thing that the people who use their voids will go unconscious and not remember anything from the time they were asleep. But this gets thrown out the window when the plot needs the students to hold their own voids, and it's just explained away by Shu saying, something changed with my power during the battle before. But then, during that same arc, sometimes characters would go unconscious. It was just a fucking lottery, I guess. Once again, another instance of writers not bothering to develop their world, and even wrote their own rules for this matter, for these voids just to completely ignore them not moments later, leaving everything all over the place with no consistency. Now, I mentioned this earlier, but aside from the school arc, the first big fight is the exact same as the final fight. Someone wants to revive Mana, and use the Inori as a vessel to do so in order to enact the apocalypse. Like, it wasn't even a sense of deja vu or anything. It's literally copy and paste. Like, hey bro, let me copy your homework, but change the words so it doesn't look the same type shit. And the way they kick off the big fight in the first arc comes out of nowhere. You spend like 7 or 8 episodes on this episodic series where they go on missions and conduct acts of terrorism. Then suddenly it's boom, Inori's kidnapped them. Boom, here's your dumb exposition dump. And then boom, they're back to revive Inori because another apocalypse, I guess. I mean, the only difference is that the first time it's some old dude, and the second time it's Guy, who has had his personality obliterated and has become an emotionless husk. I don't even have anything else to say at this point, it's just so copy and paste. So as I was watching, I kept asking myself, you know, why is he doing this? Why is Guy doing this? Why would this old dude want to kill people for the sake of it? But actually, the big bad Kaido has one singular line about how he wants to usher in a new age of humanity. It's only brought up again at the very end when Guy also has a throwaway line about humanity moving their consciousness into the crystal and becoming a new era. But it's never brought up more than 2 lines of dialogue. I almost forgot about it, to be honest. They just wrote some random shit about it to give the bad guys some semblance of an objective. A lot of the evil people in this show are evil for the sake of being evil. For example, why are they making a massive quarantine zone, trapping a bunch of children in it, and having the zone shrink slowly in order to kill them? They claim that it wasn't so the virus spread, but as I showed earlier, the writers cannot seem to settle on what a virus is, so there should have been no reason to trap them. There also seem to be no other survivors in this quarantine zone, and in fact, the GHQ are shown actively trying to kill the students and watching over them. It's the same with the very first fight. This guy is just massacring people for the sake of being evil, and so it's making the Undertakers look like the good guys, and that's probably why they're all evil, because it makes the Undertakers look the good guys. This show is absolutely riddled with plot hole inconveniences. For example, the fact that Shu just so happened to forget everything about Mana and Triton being Guy and Lost Christmas. Like, I hate that as a mystery plot. I want mystery. I really do. But when you make it that, like, oh, I'm sorry, I just forgot about it. No, it's the worst, cheap, cop-out way of making it a mystery ever. And I mean, I totally understand that, you know, there's trauma and stuff like that in real life, and that trauma can actually lead to people suppressing memories. But when it comes to fictional like this, it's horrible. It's one of the worst fucking plot devices ever. There's also, so there are 3 void genomes that have been created. Let's be generous and say that this Dot guy has one, even though he's probably not human and he probably doesn't have one. And the second genome went to Shu. Guy claims that the void genome was originally meant for him, right? So that's why Inori was stealing it at the beginning of it, but Shu had to use it on himself to save them all, right? So instead of doing the reasonable thing and going and finding this third genome, Guy just decides to recruit Shu, which causes a bunch of drama. But this third void genome makes its appearance when Shu doesn't have a power, and he injects the third one into himself so that he can regain the power of the voids. It's just so fucking convenient that we forget about this third genome for the entirety of the show, but then all of a sudden, hey, here it is again, haha. Like, why? It's the worst plot convenience ever. My first thought when Shu took the second void and it was revealed to us was, okay, now Guy should go after this third genome. But no, he doesn't. And they even portray Guy as, like, a smart dude. But, like, I'm just some fucking schmuck on the internet making clickbait videos for that sweet, sweet internet attention, and I'm smarter than Guy, clearly. I'm smarter than these writers, clearly. This show is mostly a complete disaster, but you know what? It does have its bright spots, and that being the school arc. Forgetting the circumstances as to why they were trapped, it was interesting when they had to survive on their own. Shu actually got through some character development, aka growing a pair of balls, and it was good even though it cost him a friend's life. Whatever, I didn't particularly care for that girl anyways. And it was entertaining how they had to rank people's voids on how useful they were, and seeing a hierarchy appear, as well as the dynamics of the students when Shu's rule grew to tyrannous. Also, as with all of his work, the music went hard, and we got a good amount of Sawano drops. The openings were also good, being done by Supercell, who you might recognize from masterpieces such as
So everything that makes me whole, 今君に捧げよう
and
僕たちにとって
And the animation wasn't anything to write home about, but it wasn't terrible. Overall, the show was a complete mess. It failed to set up any proper world building, so we just got shoved with tons of convenient plot devices to move the story forward. The characters are all horrible, with only 2 getting any sort of actual writing, and they literally copy and pasted the climax of the first arc and forced me to watch 6 episodes of basically the same plot over again. And the fact that this entire show could have been avoided if Shu fucked his sister makes me howl with laughter. I was cackling like a dumbass when she kissed Shu and tried to marry him. It was the funniest, stupidest shit ever. Those were my thoughts on Guilty Crown. Thanks for watching. This is the last time I care about my anime list rankings when picking a show.